Last chance to back down, Asian girl, Brad shouted, clenching his fists. No, Mia replied quietly but firmly, taking off her jacket. I won't be your victim anymore. The crowd of students held their breath. No one could believe what they were seeing. The skinny 15-year-old girl stood before the school's most fearsome bully, ready for a fight. You have no idea what this girl is capable of, someone in the crowd whispered. And he was right. They had no idea. The most interesting part is yet to come. Stay with us to find out how it all ended. In the meantime, like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Mia Chen always knew that being the new girl at Lincoln High School would not be easy, but she could never have imagined it would turn into a real nightmare. Moving from San Francisco to the small town of Springfield, Illinois, turned her life upside down. Her father got a job at the local hospital, and the family had to leave their familiar life in a multicultural city for career prospects. For 17-year-old Mia, this meant leaving behind friends, a familiar environment, and, most importantly, her secret passion, martial arts. Since she was 10, Mia had been training in traditional Kung Fu under Master Lee in San Francisco's Chinatown. 7 years of hard training had turned the fragile girl into an experienced practitioner, but she never told anyone about it. Her father always told her, true strength is not about showing it to everyone. True strength is knowing when to use it. The first day at her new school was a harbinger of the troubles to come. Lincoln High was a typical American school in a conservative town where most students had known each other since kindergarten. There were few Asian kids here, and all eyes were instantly drawn to Mia. Look, a new Chinese girl, she heard someone whisper in the hallway. I bet she's smart. All Asians are smart, added another voice. Or maybe she knows Kung Fu, laughed a third, and several students giggled. Mia tried to ignore the comments and focus on her studies. She found her place in a far corner of the cafeteria, where she usually ate alone, reading books. The first 2 weeks passed relatively quietly, aside from the constant stares and whispers behind her back. But everything changed when Brad Johnson took notice of her. Brad was the star of the football team, an 18-year-old senior with a reputation as the king of the school. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a perfect smile and impeccable haircut, he was every girl's dream. But behind the handsome exterior lay a cruel nature, and a tendency to bully those who didn't fit his idea of normal. Always by Brad's side were his loyal henchmen, Tyler Smith and Ryan Davis. Tyler was almost as big as Brad, but had a heavy gaze and a constantly sullen expression. Ryan was taller than the others, lanky, with an unpleasant laugh that echoed throughout the cafeteria. The first confrontation occurred on Monday, during Mia's 3rd week at the new school. She was sitting in the library, preparing for a history test when a shadow fell over her textbook. This seat is taken, she heard a rude voice. Mia looked up and saw Brad with his friends. The library was half empty, and there were plenty of free seats. Sorry, I didn't see any sign, Mia said quietly, gathering her things. She speaks, Brad announced loudly, addressing Tyler and Ryan. I thought maybe she was mute. Laughter rippled through the nearby tables. A few students looked up from their books, watching the scene unfold. Just mute, Tyler added, reaching for Mia's glasses. Instinctively, Mia caught his wrist, a reflex from years of training, but immediately let go. No need to escalate the situation, she mentally repeated her father's words. This movement caught Brad's attention. His eyes narrowed with interest. Not a bad reaction, he drawled. Think you're tough? No, Mia replied quietly, standing up. I just want to learn. When she turned to leave, Ryan's foot shot out, tripping her. Mia noticed the movement and easily stepped over the obstacle, maintaining her balance, but her backpack crashed to the floor, spilling its contents all over the library. Oops, Ryan smirked. What a klutz. The library filled with quiet laughter. Mia silently gathered the scattered textbooks and notebooks. Her face burned with shame, but her hands trembled not from fear, but from the effort to hold back. 6 years of training had taught her to control her emotions, but every cell in her body screamed with the desire to fight back. Miss Chen, are you okay? Mrs. Anderson, the school librarian, approached. Yes, ma'am, Mia replied, picking up the last notebook. I just dropped my backpack. Brad and his friends had already left, leaving behind an atmosphere of tension and bad omens. Over the next few days, the situation only worsened. Mia's locker was regularly stuffed with crumpled papers and food scraps. Someone had written obscene graffiti on her desk. In gym class, she was always picked last for teams, and during games, she was accidentally shoved and stepped on. The worst were the comments. "Hey, sushi," or "Go home to your rice fields," echoed in the hallways. Mia tried not to react, remembering Master Lee's teachings that anger is a weakness that can be used against you. At home, she didn't tell anyone about her problems at school. Her parents were already worried about the move and adjusting to the new place. Her father worked at the hospital for 14 hours a day, trying to prove himself in a new environment. Her mother struggled with her own isolation in an unfamiliar city where the Asian community was extremely small. In the evenings, Mia trained in the garage, practicing the forms and techniques she had learned in San Francisco. It was the only time she felt like herself, confident, strong, in control. Her movements were precise and fluid, each strike and block honed to perfection. "Mia, dear, are you in there?" Her mother called one evening, peeking into the garage. "Yes, Mom," Mia replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "How's school? You seem so quiet lately." "Everything's fine," Mia lied. "Just getting used to the new place." Her mother looked at her closely but didn't press further. "Dinner in half an hour," she said, and returned to the house. Mia continued her training, but her thoughts were far from martial arts. She thought about how much longer she could endure, about how long she could hide what was happening from her parents, about whether there was a way out of this situation that wouldn't lead to even bigger problems. The answer to these questions came unexpectedly and brutally on a cold October morning. It was Tuesday, the third week of October. Mia stood at her locker, pulling out textbooks for her first class when she felt someone's presence behind her. She expected the usual shove or taunt, but instead felt something cold and sticky in her hair. At first, she thought it was water, a cruel joke, but harmless. But then the burning began. A sharp, painful sensation spread across her scalp, and she felt something thick and viscous running down her neck. The chemical smell hit her nose. Super glue. "No," Mia whispered, touching her hair. Her fingers found the sticky, hardening mass. The glue had already begun to set, firmly bonding strands of hair to her scalp. "Looks like our little Asian got herself into a sticky situation," she heard Brad's voice behind her. Mia slowly turned around. Brad stood there with an empty tube of glue in his hands, his face glowing with malicious delight. Next to him, Tyler and Ryan filmed her reaction on their phones, capturing every second of her humiliation. "It's just a joke," Ryan said, continuing to record. "Relax." The burning intensified with each passing second. Mia felt the glue literally burning her skin, leaving chemical burns. Tears welled up in her eyes, but not from pain, rather from rage and humiliation. "What is going on here?" A sharp voice made everyone turn around. Mr. Thompson, the assistant principal, was squeezing through the crowd of students that had already gathered around the scene. "He poured super glue on my hair," Mia said, pointing at Brad. "It's just a joke," Brad quickly replied, hiding the tube behind his back. "Nothing serious." "Johnson, to my office, immediately," Mr. Thompson ordered. He then turned to Mia. "You need to see the school nurse, right now." The school nurse, Mrs. Patricia Williams, immediately understood the seriousness of the situation. She called Mia's parents and insisted on an immediate visit to the doctor. "Super glue can cause serious skin irritation and contact dermatitis," she explained to Mia's mother over the phone. "She needs medical attention." Mia's mother arrived at the school in tears. Seeing her daughter with hair glued into a hard mass stuck to her scalp, she could barely hold back her sobs. "My baby," she whispered, hugging Mia. "Who could do such a thing?" The drive to the hospital was silent. Mia sat in the back seat, carefully holding her head to avoid worsening the pain. Every movement caused suffering. The glue not only stuck her hair to her skin, but also pulled at the skin, creating excruciating tension. In the emergency room, Dr. Martinez, a young doctor with kind eyes, examined the injuries. "This is contact dermatitis from cyanoacrylate, the main component of superglue," he explained to the parents. "The skin is inflamed and irritated. Fortunately, there are no serious chemical burns, but the removal process will be painful. The hair will have to be cut. There is no other way to remove the glue." "All her hair?" the mother asked, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid so. The glue has penetrated deep into the hair structure. If we try to remove it in any other way, it will only worsen the skin damage." The hair removal procedure took 2 hours. The doctor worked as carefully as possible, using special solvents to soften the glue, but the pain was unbearable. Mia squeezed her mother's hand so tightly that she left nail marks on her palm. When it was all over, Mia looked at herself in the mirror and did not recognize her reflection. Instead of the long black hair that had been her pride, only short, uneven strands and red inflamed patches of skin remained on her head. "Sweetheart, your hair will grow back," her mother comforted her, but her own eyes were filled with tears. "It's not about the hair," Mia said quietly. "It's about the fact that they filmed it. Now the whole school will see." And she was right. By evening, the video had already spread across the school's social media. Students were forwarding it to each other in messengers, commenting and laughing. Some even added offensive captions like, "The Asian girl got what she deserved," or "Welcome to America." Mia's father, Dr. James Chen, came home late in the evening and was furious when he learned what had happened. "We are filing a police report," he declared, pacing the living room. "This is an assault with a chemical substance. This is not schoolyard bullying. This is a crime." "Dad, that will only make things worse," Mia weakly protested. "No, sweetheart. There are things you cannot tolerate. That boy must be punished for what he did." The next day, Mia's parents met with the school principal, Mr. Robert Hayes. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and the weary look of someone who had seen too many school problems. "We conducted an investigation," he began as the Chen family sat in his office. "Brad Johnson admitted to what he did. We are suspending him for a week and requiring mandatory counseling with the school psychologist." "A week?" Mia's father couldn't believe it. "For an assault using a chemical substance that resulted in injury? A week? Mr. Chen, I understand your outrage, but we must follow established procedures for minors. This is a serious punishment within the school disciplinary system." "Is he remorseful?" Mia's mother's voice trembled with emotion. "He filmed my daughter's humiliation." "How can we talk about remorse? The phone was with his friend." The principal tried to justify himself. "Brad didn't take it himself." "That doesn't matter," the father interjected. "He organized this attack. He must bear full responsibility." The principal sighed. "I understand your feelings, but 3 days of suspension is a serious punishment in our system. Moreover, Brad has agreed to write an apology letter." "An apology letter?" Mia spoke for the first time since they entered the office. "Mr. Hayes, I have chemical burns on my head. I had to shave all my hair off. The video of my humiliation is spreading throughout the school. And you think a letter of apology will fix this?" The principal looked at her with sympathy, but his position remained unchanged. "Mia, I know this is hard, but we cannot be guided solely by emotions. There are procedures we must follow." "What about the other students?" the mother asked. "The ones who filmed and spread the video?" "We spoke with them. They deleted the video from their phones." "But the damage is already done," the father said. "The video has been seen by hundreds of people." After the meeting with the principal, the Chen family was more than disappointed. It became clear that the school did not take what happened as seriously as it should have. "They are protecting him," the mother said on the way home. "Brad comes from an influential family. His father funds the school's sports programs." "Then we will go to the police," the father declared resolutely. But there, too, they faced disappointment. Officer Martin, who took their statement, treated the situation seriously but explained the limitations. "You see, while what the boy did is definitely an assault, proving intent to cause serious harm is difficult, especially when it involves minors," he explained. "We can classify this as simple assault or bullying. Given his age and lack of a criminal record, he will most likely receive community service and mandatory counseling." Mia listened to the adults' conversation and felt a cold fury growing inside her. Not the hot anger that drives one to act impulsively, but a cold, calculated rage that demands justice. That night she lay in bed, gently touching her bandaged head, and thought about what had happened, about how helpless she felt, about how all the adults who were supposed to protect her turned out to be powerless or unwilling to act. "Enough is enough," she whispered into the darkness. The next day, Mia did not go to school. Her parents decided that she needed time to recover, both physically and emotionally, but Mia used that day differently. She traveled to a sports center on the other side of town where she found a martial arts gym. The coach, Mr. Carlos Rodriguez, a former mixed martial arts fighter, watched in amazement as the fragile Asian girl demonstrated advanced kung fu techniques. "Where did you learn this?" he asked when Mia finished her demonstration. "In San Francisco, from Master Lee." "I know that, Master. Great school." Carlos looked closely at Mia's bandaged head. "Problems at school?" Mia briefly recounted what had happened. Carlos listened, his face growing darker. "I understand," he finally said. "Sometimes the system doesn't work. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. My father always said that fighting is a last resort. Your father is a wise man. But when all other means are exhausted, when you are cornered, then you have the right to defend yourself. Carlos conducted a private training session with Mia, focusing on adapting her kung fu techniques to real-life self-defense situations. Kung fu is beautiful, he explained, but in a real fight, you need to be ready for the opponent not to follow the rules. They will fight dirty, using their size and weight. They practice defenses against grabs, ways to use the opponent's momentum against them, and distance control techniques. Remember, Carlos said at the end of the training, the goal is not to cause maximum harm. The goal is to stop the threat and show that you are not a victim. That evening, Mia received a message from her classmate, Emily, one of the few students who treated her kindly. Mia, Brad is coming back to school tomorrow. He's bragging that he only got 3 days for a little joke. He says you know your place now. Be careful. Mia stared at the message for a long time. Then she wrote a reply. Thanks for the heads up. See you tomorrow. The next morning, Mia got up earlier than usual. She put on dark jeans and a simple black t-shirt, clothes that didn't restrict her movements. Instead of glasses, she put in contact lenses. She pulled a dark baseball cap over her head to hide the bandages. Are you sure you're ready to go back? Her mother asked at breakfast. Yes, Mia replied firmly. I'm not hiding anymore. The entrance to the school felt like walking through a minefield. Conversations quieted as Mia passed by. Eyes followed her. She heard whispers. That's the girl. The one they poured glue on. Did you see the video? But Mia walked straight, not looking down, not trying to become invisible. 6 years of training had taught her to hold herself confidently, and now she was using those skills to the fullest. In her usual seat in the first English class, she sat down. When Brad and his friends entered, a tense silence fell over the classroom. Brad looked at Mia and smirked. Oh, look who's back, he said loudly. How's your new haircut, Asian? A few students nervously laughed. Mia turned and looked directly at Brad. My name is Mia, she said calmly, and I like my haircut. It's very practical. Surprise flickered in Brad's eyes. He clearly expected tears or fear, but not calm confidence. By lunchtime, it was clear that nothing had changed. The video of the glue incident continued to circulate, despite promises to take it down. Some students even created memes based on it. In the cafeteria, Mia sat alone as usual when a whole group approached her table. Brad, Tyler, Ryan, and a few other football players surrounded her. So you've come out of hiding? Brad said loudly, drawing the attention of the entire cafeteria. I'm surprised you showed your face after such humiliation. Mia slowly lifted her gaze from her lunch and looked directly at Brad. I was never hiding, she said evenly. I was recovering from the chemical burns you caused me. Chemical burns? Brad laughed. That was a little joke. You're being too dramatic. A joke? Mia's voice grew colder. You think chemical burns are a joke? The cafeteria gradually quieted down. Students at nearby tables turned to watch the confrontation. Listen, Asian. Brad leaned closer to Mia. You're new here, so I'll explain how things work. There are those who matter and those who don't. Guess which category you belong to. Mia stood up from her seat. Even standing, she was significantly shorter than Brad, but something in her posture made him involuntarily take a step back. I don't want any trouble, Brad, she said quietly, but her words carried to every corner of the cafeteria. I just want to learn and eat my lunch in peace. What if I don't want to leave you alone? Brad smirked. What will you do then? Mia looked at him with a long gaze. In that look was something that made several students in the crowd feel an unexpected unease. Then, she said very quietly, you'll find out who I really am. Brad laughed, but the laughter didn't sound as confident as usual. Big words from a little girl. You know what? I think you need a new reminder of your place. He nodded to Tyler, who pulled out a new tube of super glue from his pocket. Mia's stomach twisted at the memories of pain and humiliation, but her face remained calm. This time, Brad lowered his voice. No one will come to your rescue. After school, behind the gym, 3 o'clock. If you're not afraid. Mia knew it was a trap. She knew Brad wasn't going to play fair, but she also knew she could no longer run. At 3 o'clock, she said calmly. Just you and me. No friends, no glue, no weapons. A fair fight. Brad raised his eyebrows in surprise. Are you seriously challenging me to a duel? You? Yes. The confidence in that word sparked a wave of whispers among the students. Everyone knew Brad was much bigger and stronger. No one understood where such confidence came from in a fragile Asian girl. Your funeral, Brad smirked. At 3 o'clock. But when I'm done with you, you'll never look me in the eye again. The news of the upcoming fight spread through the school like wildfire. By the last class, even the teachers knew something was brewing. In the hallways, all anyone talked about was how the new Asian girl challenged Brad Johnson to a fight. Most students considered it suicide. Brad was not only much larger than Mia, but he also had a reputation as a brutal fighter. A few years ago, he had beaten a student so badly that the kid had to be hospitalized. At 2:55, Mia made her way to the back of the gym. Her heart was calm and steady. She thought of Master Lee's words. A true battle is won not by the strength of muscles, but by the strength of spirit. He who remains calm in chaos has already won half the battle. A crowd had already gathered behind the gym. It seemed half the school had come to witness what many considered a beating. Phones were at the ready, prepared to capture every moment. In the center of the circle stood Brad with Tyler and Ryan. Upon seeing Mia, he laughed loudly. "I didn't think you had the guts to show up," he shouted. "Last chance to back down, Asian girl." Mia took off her jacket and baseball cap, revealing her short hair and still visible traces of bandages. The crowd buzzed, seeing the full consequences of what Brad had done. "No friends," she reminded, looking at Tyler and Ryan. "Just you and me." Brad confidently waved his friends away. "I won't need help," he declared. "This will be quick." Mia stood in the center of the circle, completely relaxed. Her stance gave away no signs of combat training. She looked like an ordinary girl who didn't know what she had gotten into. Brad began to circle around her like a predator around its prey. "Last chance," he said. "Get on your knees, apologize for challenging me, and I'll be merciful." "No," Mia answered quietly but firmly. And at that moment, something changed. Maybe it was the tone of her voice, or something in her gaze, but several students in the crowd felt they were about to witness something unexpected. Brad attacked first, throwing a wide right-hand punch at Mia's head. It was a clumsy telegraph blow that Mia saw coming from a mile away. She simply leaned aside and Brad's fist whizzed past her without even grazing her. Losing his balance from his own momentum, Brad stumbled forward. The crowd murmured in surprise. "Stand still and fight," Brad shouted, attacking again. This time he threw a series of punches, but each one met only air. Mia dodged and blocked with minimal movements. Her technique was economical and precise. Within 30 seconds, Brad was already breathing heavily from the exertion. "Stop dancing and fight back," he yelled, lunging forward with his whole body. This time, Mia counterattacked. A simple sweep caught Brad's leg and sent him face first into the grass. The crowd gasped, then erupted into a mix of shock and nervous laughter. Brad sprang to his feet, his face flushed with rage and humiliation. "That was luck," he growled. "That's not luck," Mia replied calmly. "We can stop right now. Just leave me alone." The suggestion only infuriated Brad further. With a roar of rage, he charged at Mia again, this time attacking with more caution, but also with more fury. Mia retreated, caught his arm, and used Brad's own momentum to throw him over her hip. The Sambo throw she had learned from Master Lee worked perfectly. The big guy crashed to the ground again with a thud. The circle of onlookers fell silent. Phones continued to record, but the expressions on their faces shifted from anticipation of a beating to complete disbelief. "What are you waiting for?" Brad shouted, getting up and addressing Tyler and Ryan. "Get her!" The rules of the game had changed. Tyler and Ryan rushed forward, turning a fair duel into a 3-on-1 attack. But Mia was ready for this. Fighting against multiple opponents had been part of her advanced kung fu training. When Ryan reached her first, Mia executed a leg sweep, using his own momentum to throw him to the ground, then rolled to the side. Tyler attacked right after that, but Mia intercepted his strike, applied an arm lock, and flipped him over using leverage. Brad got back up and began to circle, looking for an opportunity to attack while Mia was busy with his friends. But Mia kept moving, maintaining awareness of all three opponents simultaneously. "Is she some kind of ninja or what?" someone in the crowd said loudly. This comment seemed to push Brad over the edge. With a roar of rage, he charged at Mia from behind, trying to grab her and use his weight to overpower her. This was the worst thing he could do against a kung fu master. Within seconds, Mia turned the tables, taking a position behind Brad and applying a chokehold. Not fully, but with enough pressure to show what she could do. "Give up," she whispered directly into his ear. It's over. Brad struggled for a few more seconds, then froze, finally realizing his position. Mia felt the moment when his fighting spirit left him, the relaxation of his muscles, the shift from resistance to surrender. She released the hold and stepped back, giving Brad space to get up. The football player slowly rose to his feet. His face was a mask of shock, disbelief, and deep humiliation. He looked around at the crowd of students, at the phones that had captured every moment of his defeat by a girl half his size. "Who the hell are you?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I'm the girl you bullied for 2 months," Mia replied evenly. "The girl you sent to the hospital with chemical burns. The girl who asked you many times to just leave her alone." The silence was deafening. Many students lowered their phones, suddenly realizing the seriousness of what they had just witnessed. Brad looked at the sea of faces, at the devices that had recorded his complete defeat, and something inside him finally broke. Without a word, he pushed through the crowd and left, leaving behind not only his jacket but everything that remained of his reputation. Tyler and Ryan exchanged uncertain glances, then hurried after him. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with discussions about what they had seen. One of the girls, Emily from literature class, approached Mia. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" she asked in awe. "I've been training since I was 9, Mia replied simply. "But it was never about fighting. It's about discipline and self-defense." "Why didn't you do this earlier when they first started bullying you?" "Because it should always be a last resort, not the first," Mia said, putting on her jacket. "I tried everything else first." By evening, the video of the fight was spreading across social media at lightning speed. But this time, Mia was not the victim. She was the heroine. The comments were completely different. "This girl is a real warrior. Brad got what he deserved. Justice has been served." But Mia paid little attention to the online reaction. At home, she quietly sat in the garage, meditating as Master Lee had taught her. "Mia," her father peeked into the garage. "The school principal called me. He said there was a fight?" Mia told her father what had happened. He listened silently, and when she finished, he hugged his daughter. "Do you remember what I told you about fighting? That it should be a last resort." "Exactly. And today you have reached that point. You defended yourself with honor and dignity. I am proud of you." The next day, the school felt like a completely different place. Students who had never spoken to Mia before greeted her in the hallways. Teachers looked at her with a mix of respect and slight concern. Brad, Tyler, and Ryan were absent. Brad's parents transferred him to a private school after the videos of both incidents went viral across the state. The school principal called Mia to his office in the afternoon. She expected suspension or even expulsion for the fight on school grounds. Instead, she found her parents, the school district superintendent, Dr. Susan Black, and the school lawyer in the office. "Mia," the principal began, "we're not here to punish you. We're here to discuss how to move forward constructively." The viral videos had created a crisis for the entire school district. Parents and community members demanded explanations for why the superglue incident had not been taken seriously from the start. "We acknowledge that there were serious shortcomings in how we handled the initial situation," Dr. Black said. "We are implementing new anti-bullying protocols." "A little late for our daughter," Mia's father remarked. "Yes," the superintendent admitted honestly. "That's why we're here. We want to make things right." Making things right included covering all of Mia's medical expenses, an official record stating that she acted in self-defense, and an invitation to help develop a new anti-bullying initiative. "You showed remarkable restraint and maturity," Dr. Black said. "These are exactly the qualities we need in student leaders." "I will help," Mia said, "but it has to be real change, not just a show." In the following days, the school truly began to change. The new anti-bullying program included real policy changes, teacher training, and a peer support system. Mia found herself at the center of these changes. She even started a self-defense club with Mr. Rodriguez as the instructor, brought in from the sports center. But the most unexpected change happened on Friday of that same week. Mia was standing by her locker when Ryan approached her uncertainly. "Hi," he awkwardly said. "Hi," Mia replied cautiously but not hostilely. I wanted to apologize for everything, but especially for the superglue. I should have stopped Brad. Why are you telling me this only now?" Ryan met her gaze. "Because I've thought a lot about why I supported everything Brad did, and I didn't like the answers I found." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I was a coward. It was easier to be on his side than to become his target." Mia nodded. "I understand that better than you think." "Anyway," Ryan continued, "I signed up for your self-defense club, if you don't mind." I think maybe it's not just about fighting techniques. Maybe it's also about having the confidence to make the right choices. That's exactly it, Mia said, extending her hand. See you on Monday. As Ryan walked away, Emily approached Mia. You know you did something special, right? She said. What do you mean? You changed the whole school. Not just because you beat Brad, but because you showed everyone that you can stand up for yourself with dignity. Mia looked around at the hallways of a school that just a week ago had seemed like a hostile place. Now she saw the faces of students smiling at her, teachers nodding with respect, an atmosphere that had become friendlier and safer. You know, she said to Emily, my kung fu teacher always said that true victory is not about defeating an opponent. True victory is turning an enemy into a friend. And did you manage that? Mia looked at Ryan's retreating figure. Maybe, she smiled. Maybe. The scars on Mia's head were healing. The hair grew back slowly but surely. But some changes were permanent and much more significant. She no longer tried to become invisible. She spoke up in class, joined clubs, and made friends. The martial arts skills that were once her secret had now become something she openly shared, teaching others not only techniques but also the philosophy, respect, discipline, and the understanding that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in protecting oneself and those who are weaker. The Self-Defense Club quickly became one of the most popular in the school. It attracted not only those who wanted to learn how to fight, but also those who wanted to gain confidence and learn to stand up for their principles. A month after the incident, Mia received an unexpected letter. It arrived by mail with no return address. Inside was a simple note. Mia, I know I don't deserve forgiveness for what I did, but I want you to know, you changed me. At the new school, I'm different. I protect those I might have hurt before. Thank you for the lesson you taught me. Mia held the letter in her hands for a long time, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment, about the pain and humiliation she had endured, about the anger and desire for revenge she had overcome, about the strength she found not in her fist but in her own spirit. That evening, she called Master Lee in San Francisco to tell him what had happened. Master, she said, I applied what you taught me. Tell me, Master Lee asked. Mia recounted the entire story from beginning to end. Master Lee listened silently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. And how do you feel now? He asked when she finished. Different, Mia replied honestly. Stronger, but not because I defeated someone in a fight, because I found the strength within myself to stand up for the truth. Exactly, Master Lee said, pride evident in his voice. You have understood the most important lesson of Kung Fu. It's not about causing pain to others. It's about finding the strength to be who you are meant to be. After the conversation, Mia went out to the garage where she continued to train every evening. But now it was not an escape from problems. It was a way to stay connected with herself, with the source of her inner strength. She performed the slow, fluid movements of the ancient form she had learned from Master Lee. Each movement was filled with meaning. Each position told a story of balance between strength and softness, between protection and compassion. Mia, her mother's voice interrupted her meditation. Yes, Mom? You have a visitor. Mia stepped out of the garage and saw a girl about her age in the living room. She was thin, with sad eyes and a bruise on her cheek. Hi, the stranger said quietly. My name is Sarah. I go to middle school on the other side of town. I saw the video. What happened to you and how you handled it? Mia sat down next to her. Do you have problems at school too? Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I don't know what to do. They do it every day. And the adults say it's a normal part of growing up. Mia took the girl's hand in hers. It's not normal, she said firmly, and you shouldn't have to endure it alone. That evening, Mia and Sarah talked late into the night. Mia shared not only her story, but also the strategies that had helped her cope with the situation. They discussed the importance of documenting incidents, finding allies among classmates and adults, and building self-confidence. What if nothing helps? Sarah asked. Then you learn to defend yourself, Mia replied. But that's always a last resort. And it's not about causing pain to someone. It's about showing that you are not a victim. When Sarah left, Mia's mother approached her. You talked well with her, she said. I know what it's like, Mia replied. No one should go through this alone. In the following weeks, Sarah became a frequent visitor at the Chen household. Mia started teaching her the basics of self-defense in the garage. But even more importantly, she helped her find her voice, the confidence to stand up for herself with words before fists were needed. Gradually, other girls and boys from different schools in the district joined them. Mia's home became an unofficial support center for children facing bullying. Dr. Black learned about this and suggested that Mia create an official support program for bullying victims that would operate in all schools in the district. "We could provide you with resources, training, and support from professionals," she explained. "That sounds wonderful," Mia replied. "But there's one condition." "What is it?" "The program must teach not only how to stop bullying, but also how to prevent it. We need to work with those who bully others, help them understand why they do it." Dr. Black smiled. "Wise suggestion. I agree." 6 months later, the Bridges of Understanding program, created by Mia, was operating in 20 schools across the state. It combined elements of self-defense with conflict resolution, peer mediation, and emotional intelligence programs. But what remained most important to Mia was what had happened to her. She was no longer the quiet girl trying to become invisible. She had found her voice, her strength, her place in the world. One day, almost a year after the super glue incident, Mia stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing her hair, which had finally grown to a length she liked. The scars on her scalp had almost faded, leaving only faint traces of what she had gone through. But the real changes were not on the surface. They were deep inside, in how she carried herself, how she spoke, how she viewed the world. She was no longer a victim. She was a defender, not only of herself, but of others who needed help. At school, she was respected, not because she could fight, but because she used her strength to protect the weak, to create justice where it was lacking. "Mia, hurry up," her mother shouted from downstairs. "You'll be late for the club meeting." "Coming," Mia replied. She looked at her reflection one more time. In the mirror, she saw not the frightened girl who had arrived in Springfield a year ago, but a confident young woman who knew her worth and was ready to defend it. "Sometimes," she said to her reflection, repeating the words that had become her personal motto, "the bravest thing you can do is stand up for yourself. Not because violence solves problems, but because every person deserves dignity and respect." She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. Ahead of her was another day of working with children who needed someone to show them the way from fear to strength, from victimhood to victory. And Mia was ready to show them that path because she had walked it herself to the end. The moment she stepped out of the house, a message came through on her phone from Sarah, who was now the leader of the Bridges of Understanding program at her school. "Mia, today I helped another girl find her voice. Thank you for showing me what's possible. You've changed not only my life, but the lives of all those we can now protect." Mia smiled, putting her phone in her pocket. She thought about the long chain of changes that had begun with one moment of courage, one decision to no longer be a victim. Sometimes one action can change everything. Sometimes one voice can awaken hundreds of others. Sometimes one girl who decided to stand up for herself can change the whole world. And as Mia walked down the street to the school where her self-defense club awaited, full of children eager to learn to be strong, she knew one simple truth. True strength is not in never falling. True strength is in always finding a way to rise. But fate had one more challenge in store for Mia. On the day she walked to school with a smile on her face, thinking about how her life had changed, she had no idea that a few blocks away, Brad Johnson was sitting in his father's car, clutching a printout of an article from the local newspaper. "Asian student creates revolutionary anti-bullying program," read the headline. Below it was a large photograph of Mia receiving an award from the city mayor for her work with the Bridges of Understanding program. Brad's face contorted with rage. A year in private school hadn't changed him. If anything, the isolation from the consequences of his actions had only intensified his resentment. He blamed Mia for everything, for his expulsion, for the loss of status, for his name becoming synonymous with shame at their former school. "She ruined my life," he whispered, crumpling the newspaper, "and now they consider her a hero." Brad didn't know that his former friends Tyler and Ryan had completely changed. Tyler had become a volunteer in Mia's program, helping other kids cope with aggression. Ryan was one of the most active members of the self-defense club and planned to study psychology in college to help victims of bullying. But Brad saw only his own pain, his humiliation, his need for revenge. That evening, when Mia was conducting another self-defense class in the school gym, she noticed an unfamiliar man watching from behind the glass doors. Something about his silhouette seemed familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. "Ms. Chen?" One of the younger students, 12-year-old Marcus, tugged at her sleeve. "That guy by the door has been watching us for half an hour." Mia turned around, but the man had already disappeared. Probably a parent of one of the students, she said, but the uneasy feeling lingered. After the class, when all the students had left, Mia remained alone in the gym, tidying up mats and equipment. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't notice someone had entered the hall. "Long time no see, Asian." The voice made her blood run cold. Mia slowly turned around and saw Brad. He was taller and bulkier than a year ago. Apparently, he had been hitting the gym hard in preparation for this encounter. "Brad," she said calmly, though her heart raced, "what are you doing here?" "I came to take back what you stole from me." His voice was filled with icy fury. "I didn't steal anything from you." "My life," he exploded. "My reputation. My future. Because of you, I had to leave school. Because of you, my dad lost his job on the school board. Because of you, the whole town thinks I'm a monster." Mia slowly backed toward the center of the hall, instinctively seeking a better position for defense. "Brad, you made your own choices. No one forced you to glue my hair." "That was a joke," he shouted. "Just a joke. And you ruined my life because of it." "A joke?" Mia's voice grew colder. "Chemical burns are a joke. Humiliation is a joke. And what now? You became famous off my suffering. You get awards for destroying me." Brad began to approach, and Mia realized he hadn't come to talk. There was a threat in his movements, a thirst for revenge in his eyes. "Brad, don't do anything stupid," she warned. "Leave now, and we'll forget this conversation." "Forget?" He laughed, but the laughter was filled with pain and anger. "I haven't stopped thinking for a second about how you humiliated me. You know what I've been doing all this time? Training, studying martial arts, preparing for this moment." He took off his jacket, and Mia saw that his hands were covered in bruises and calluses from intense training. He was no longer the clumsy bully she had fought a few months ago. He had become dangerous. "Now everything will be different," Brad growled. "Now I'll show everyone who the real warrior is." He attacked without warning, but his movements were more controlled than before. Mia barely managed to dodge a blow that could have seriously injured her. "You've been studying boxing," she noted, analyzing his stance. "Boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu," he replied, circling around her. "I've been preparing for this all year." The next attack was more dangerous. Brad combined punches with kicks, forcing Mia to work at her limit. He was stronger, heavier, and now he had technique. But Mia had something he didn't: calmness and wisdom. A year of working with children affected by bullying had taught her not only to protect her body, but also to understand the pain of the soul. "Brad," she said, blocking a series of strikes, "this won't fix your pain." "Shut up." He increased the intensity of his attack. "Do you think that if you beat me, you'll feel better? Do you think this will earn you respect back?" "I said shut up." But Mia kept talking, even dodging his blows. "You know what I learned this year? That people who hurt others are suffering the most themselves." Brad paused for a moment, his breathing heavy. "You don't know what I've been through." "Then tell me." Mia lowered her hands, taking a less defensive position. "Tell me what made you think that the only way to feel strong is to humiliate others." Brad hesitated. Something like confusion flickered across his face. "What happened to you, Brad? What made a 17-year-old boy think it was okay to glue a 15-year-old girl's hair?" "Because," his voice trembled, "because if I wasn't the strongest, the most important, then I was nobody." For the first time since they met in the gym, Mia saw not anger in his eyes, but pain. "And now what do you feel?" she asked quietly. "I'm still nobody," he whispered, and there was so much despair in his voice that Mia's heart ached with sympathy. "Brad!" "No!" He attacked again, but this time his movements were driven by desperation, not technique. "I don't want your pity. I want justice." The fight resumed, but now it was different. Brad fought not like a trained fighter, but like a cornered beast. His strikes were chaotic, but no less dangerous for that. At one point, he managed to grab Mia and throw her to the ground. She hit her back against the hard gym floor, momentarily losing her breath. "Now you know what it's like to be helpless," Brad shouted, raising his fist to strike. But the blow never came. In the doorway of the gym stood Mr. Rodriguez, the school principal, Mr. Hayes, and two police officers. "Step away from her, son," one of the officers said calmly, his hand resting on his holster. Brad froze, his fist still raised above Mia. "It's not what you think," he said, but his voice sounded uncertain. "We know exactly what it is," Mr. Hayes replied. "The school security system recorded everything." "Brad," Mia slowly got up, despite the pain in her back. Please, don't make this worse. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw not anger, but utter despair. I don't know how to live with what I've done, he whispered. I don't know how to be who I've become. Then be someone else, Mia said softly. It's never too late to change. Brad slowly lowered his hands and stepped back. The police officers moved closer, ready to put handcuffs on him. Wait, Mia said. Everyone turned to her in surprise. Mia, this young man attacked you, the principal began. I know, Mia interrupted him. But I also know that prison won't help him become better. She looked at Brad. There is another way. There are support programs, counseling, the chance for redemption. After everything he did to you? Mr. Rodriguez couldn't believe it. That's exactly why, Mia replied, because the cycle of revenge has to end sometime. Brad looked at her with disbelief. Why? Why are you helping me after everything? Mia thought about her journey, the pain she had endured, the wisdom she had gained. Because I realized something important, she said. True strength is not in defeating the enemy. The true strength lies in helping him stop being an enemy. The next hours passed in a blurred flow. Police procedures, medical examinations, calls to parents. Brad was not arrested, but was given a choice. Either prison for assault or mandatory treatment in community service. He chose treatment. 3 months later, Mia received a letter, this time with a return address, a rehabilitation center for teenagers with aggression issues. Mia, it read, I don't know if you will ever forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself, but I want you to know I am working on myself every day. The counselor says that my aggression was a way to cope with my own pain and fear. It's not an excuse, but it's an explanation. I learned about your program, Bridges of Understanding, about how it now operates in 100 schools across the state, about how you have helped thousands of children. I am proud of you, even if I don't have the right to say that. When I get out of here, I want to ask you for something. Let me help your program, not as a leader or teacher, but as an example of what can happen when pain turns into aggression. Let me tell my story to the children who are following my old path. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but maybe I deserve the chance to prevent someone else from going through our pain. With respect and remorse, Brad. Mia sat for a long time with the letter in her hands. Then she picked up the phone and dialed the rehabilitation center's number. Hello, she said when someone answered. My name is Mia Chen. I would like to speak with Brad Johnson. 6 months later, Brad stood before a group of high school seniors in the Lincoln High Auditorium. Next to him sat Mia. My name is Brad Johnson, he began, his voice trembling with emotion. 2 years ago, I did something terrible. I hurt a girl who never did anything bad to me. I did it because she was different, because I was weak and thought that hurting others would make me strong. The hall listened in absolute silence. I want to tell you my story, not for you to forgive me. I want to tell it so that you never repeat my mistakes. He shared everything, about his own fears and insecurities, how he used aggression as a shield, the destructive consequences of his actions, not only for Mia, but for himself as well. The scariest thing, he said at the end, is that I could have killed something beautiful in another person. Fortunately, Mia turned out to be stronger than my anger, but not everyone is that strong. When he finished, there was silence in the hall. Then a girl raised her hand. What now? How do you live with what you did? Brad looked at Mia, who nodded at him encouragingly. Every day I choose to be better than I was yesterday, he replied. Every day I try to make amends for at least some of the harm I caused. And every day I remember that my actions have consequences not only for others, but for me as well. After the presentation, the same girl approached Mia. How could you forgive him? She asked. Mia smiled. I realize that forgiveness is not a gift I give him. It's a gift I give myself. As long as I held on to anger, it poisoned my life. Forgiveness set me free. What if he hadn't changed? Then I would have forgiven him anyway, Mia replied, because my forgiveness does not depend on his changes. It depends on my choice not to let his actions define my life. That night, Mia stood in her garage performing familiar kung fu forms. The movements were smooth and meditative, each position telling a story of balance and harmony. Mia? Her father peeked into the garage. Hi, Dad. How did the presentation go? Well, she answered, finishing the form. Hard, but good. Her father stepped closer. I'm proud of you, he said, not just for being strong, but for being wise. Master Li always said that true mastery of Kung Fu is not about winning fights. True mastery lies in turning enemies into friends. And do you think Brad has become your friend? Mia pondered. Not a friend, she finally said, but he is no longer an enemy. And for me, that is enough. A year later, the Bridges of Understanding program was operating in 50 schools across the state. Mia received a regional award for her work with youth from the state governor. But the most important prize for her was a letter she received from a 13-year-old girl in Texas. Dear Mia, I have been bullied at school for 6 months. I wanted to end my life. But then I saw your video on YouTube. You said that every person has the right to dignity and safety. It helped me find the strength to ask for help. Thank you for showing me that I am not alone. Jessica. Mia held the letter with trembling hands, reading it over and over. In those simple words was the essence of everything she had fought for. That evening, she called an emergency meeting of the Bridges of Understanding team. We need to do more, she told the group of volunteers who helped her run the program. Letters like this come in every day. There are children who think the only way out is to harm themselves or others. What do you propose? Asked Ryan, who was now the program coordinator in their district. A National Awareness Day, Mia replied. A day when every child in America hears the same message. You are not alone, you matter, and there are people who want to help you. The idea was ambitiously crazy. Organizing a nationwide event required resources, connections, and influence that a 17-year-old girl simply did not have. But Mia was not an ordinary 17-year-old girl. Over the next 6 months, she worked 18 hours a day, reaching out to politicians, celebrities, media companies, and educational organizations. She spoke before Congress, gave interviews to national television channels, and met with state governors. Every year in our country, 300,000 children skip school due to fear of bullying, she told CNN cameras. Every day, 14 children attempt to take their own lives because of bullying. This is not just a school problem, it is a national crisis. Gradually, the idea gained momentum. Major corporations joined the movement, offering funding. Celebrities recorded video messages. Schools across the country registered to participate. And finally, the designated day arrived. April 15th, Anti-Bullying Solidarity Day. At 7 a.m. Eastern Time, as the first schools on the East Coast were just starting their day, Mia stood in a local television studio in Chicago. Today is a special day, she began the live broadcast, which was simultaneously aired on regional channels in several states. Today, we are telling every child in our region, you are not alone. At that moment, in 2,000 schools across the Midwest, hundreds of thousands of children were listening to the same message. You may feel powerless right now. It may seem like no one understands your pain. You may think that the only way out is to harm yourself or someone else. Mia's voice was calm, but it carried a strength born from her own experience of overcoming. But I want you to know the truth. You are stronger than you think. You matter more than you realize. And you are never, ever alone. The studio was silent, her voice echoing through the airwaves to millions of listeners. 3 years ago, I was just like many of you. I was a target for bullies. I was humiliated, physically hurt, made to feel worthless. I thought it would never end. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But I want to share with you a secret that changed my life. True strength is not about being the biggest or the loudest. True strength is knowing your worth and standing up for it. The true strength lies in standing up and saying, I will not be treated like this anymore. Across the country, children listened, holding their breath. But the most important thing is that true strength lies in reaching out to those in need, in being a voice for those who have lost theirs, in being a light in the darkness for those who have lost it. At that moment, a stack of letters was brought into the studio. Hundreds, thousands of messages from children all over the country that had been received in the last few hours. At this moment, Mia continued, millions of children across the country are making the same choice. The choice not to be indifferent. The choice not to remain silent. The choice to be part of the solution. She randomly picked one of the letters. Tommy from Ohio writes, I promise to stop teasing Michael for his stutter. Instead, I will protect him. Another letter. Sarah from California. I will tell the adults that Jessica is being bullied in our class. I will no longer remain silent. The letters kept coming, and Mia read them one after another, each a child's promise to be better, stronger, kinder. This is the true revolution, she said, looking straight into the camera. Not a revolution of power or revenge, a revolution of compassion, a revolution of courage. a revolution of hope. But suddenly her voice trembled. A special message was brought into the studio. A letter from a girl named Jessica from Texas. The very Jessica who had written about her thoughts of suicide a year ago. "Dear Mia," she read, and tears began to well up in her eyes. "A year ago I wanted to die. Today I want to live. Not just live, but help others find reasons to live. I started a support club at my school. We already have 20 members. We call ourselves Bridges of Hope. Thank you for saving my life, even without knowing it." Mia could no longer hold back her emotions. Tears streamed down her face, but she continued to speak. "Jessica," she whispered, "thank you for choosing life. Thank you for being a bridge of hope for others." She looked into the camera, and millions of children across the country saw not only strength in her eyes, but also deep humanity. "Each of you can be a bridge," she said with a voice trembling with emotion. "A bridge from pain to healing, from loneliness to belonging, from despair to hope." At that moment, something incredible happened. Across the country, children began to stand up. In classrooms, auditoriums, gymnasiums, millions of students rose from their seats in a show of solidarity. "Stand up," Mia whispered, and her whisper spread across the nation. "Stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Stand up for justice. Stand up for love." And they stood. Everyone, teachers, principals, parents watching the broadcast at work. Even adults on the street stopped and stood up, seeing the broadcast in store windows. "Today," Mia said, now also standing, "we make a promise that no child will be left alone in their pain again. A promise that we will build a world where every person knows their worth." The camera slowly pulled back, showing Mia standing in the studio, a small figure of a girl who had become the voice for millions. "My name is Mia Chen," she concluded. 3 years ago, I was a scared victim. Today, I stand before you as proof that each of us can change the world. Not tomorrow, not someday later. Now." The screen darkened, but across the region, no one moved. In the silence that followed, one could hear the world changing. That day, reports of bullying in schools in the region decreased by 30%. Calls to teen helplines doubled, but these were calls for help, not from despair. But most importantly, hundreds of thousands of children felt for the first time in a long time that they were not alone. Late that night, Mia sat in her hotel room in New York, reading the stream of messages that continued to come in. Each letter was a story of change, a promise to be better, a thank you for hope. The phone rang. It was her father. "Mia, sweetheart, are you okay?" "Yes, Dad," she replied softly. "I'm okay. We watched the broadcast. Mom is crying from pride. So am I." Mia smiled through her tears. "Do you remember what you told me when I was 9 and just starting to learn Kung Fu? That true strength isn't about proving something to others, but about knowing your capabilities and using them when necessary," she finished. "Today was necessary, Dad." "Yes, sweetheart, today was necessary." After the conversation, Mia stepped out onto the hotel balcony and looked at the lights of New York City. Somewhere in this ocean of light were children who would go to bed tonight for the first time in a long while, with hope in their hearts. She thought about her journey, from a frightened victim to a national leader in the anti-bullying movement, about the pain she had endured and the strength she had found, about how one act of courage can create waves of change that reach the farthest shores. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Another message, this time from an unknown number. "Mia, it's Brad. I watched the broadcast from the rehabilitation center with the other guys. When you talked about forgiveness and second chances, I thought about how far we've both come. You've become a national hero. I've become a better person. Thank you for showing me that change is possible. Your former enemy, and now, I hope, an ally in the fight for a better world." Mia smiled as she looked at the message. Full circle. From pain to healing, from enmity to understanding, from loneliness to connection with millions of people. She raised her gaze to the stars, barely visible among the city lights, and whispered the words that had become her prayer. "May every child know their worth. May every voice be heard. May every heart find its bridge to hope." In that moment, standing on the balcony in the heart of America's largest city, the little girl who once felt invisible became a beacon of light for the whole world. But this day was just the beginning. In the hours following the broadcast, something unprecedented happened in the history of social movements. The hashtag #BridgesOfHope became the most popular in the world. garnering over 50 million mentions in the first 24 hours. Children from around the globe began sharing their stories, not just from America, but from Canada, the UK, Australia, even from countries where English was a second language. Stories were translated into dozens of languages, creating a global wave of understanding and empathy. Maria from Mexico wrote, "In our school, there's a boy named Carlos who gets bullied for being poor. After watching Mia's broadcast, our whole class raised money to buy him a new school uniform. When we gave it to him, he cried. But those were tears of joy." Anna from Germany shared, "I bullied a girl named Gretel for her accent. After today, I approached her and apologized. We talked for 3 hours. It turns out her family are refugees, and she just wanted to make friends. Now we're best friends." Hiroshi from Japan wrote a long letter about the culture of ijime, Japanese bullying, that drove him to attempt suicide. Mia's words that we are not alone reached even Tokyo. "I started a support group at my school. We already have 50 members. But the most astonishing story came from an unexpected place, a juvenile detention center in Texas. 17-year-old Marcus Jones was incarcerated for assaulting a classmate, which he committed after months of bullying. His letter arrived a week after the broadcast. "Ms. Chen, my name is Marcus. I'm in prison for beating up a boy who tormented me for 2 years. I thought violence was the only way to stop the pain. I was wrong. We were forced to watch your broadcast in the prison library. When you spoke about true strength being in forgiveness, not revenge, I cried for the first time in 2 years. I wrote a letter to Danny, the boy I beat up. I apologized. I didn't expect a response, but he wrote back to me. It turns out he was bullying me because his father was hitting him at home. We were both victims, causing each other pain. Now we are corresponding. When I get out in 6 months, we want to create a program for kids in our neighborhood together. A program that will show them there is another way besides violence. Thank you for showing me that even someone like me can change." Mia read Marcus's letter in her hotel room, and tears streamed down her cheeks like a river. Each story was proof that one message of hope can reach the darkest corners and ignite light where it has long been absent. But the personal cost of this triumph was enormous. In the 2 weeks following the broadcast, Mia received over 100,000 letters. Each demanded attention, each told a story of pain and hope. She read them all, responded to each one personally, and it was physically and emotionally exhausting. "Mia, dear, you have to eat," her mother pleaded when Mia once again skipped dinner, absorbed in reading letters from children. "Mom, I can't stop," Mia replied, pointing to the stacks of envelopes. "Each letter is someone's life. Someone is counting on a response. But you are destroying your own health." Mia looked in the mirror and saw that her mother was right. In 2 weeks, she had lost weight, dark circles appeared under her eyes, and her hands trembled from fatigue. But then she read a letter that changed everything. It was from an 8-year-old girl named Emma from a small town in Montana. "Dear Mia, my name is Emma. I am 8 years old. I can't write very well, but my mom helps me. The older boys at school say I'm stupid because I read slowly. They laugh when the teacher asks me to read aloud. I watched you on TV with my mom. Mom cried, and I didn't understand why. But then you said that every child is important, even ones like me. I want to ask, if I can't read quickly and I'm not as smart as other kids, am I still important? Mom says yes, but moms always say that. P.S. Mom says I'm special because I have dyslexia. Is that true? With love, Emma." Mom helped write some hard words. Mia held the letter with trembling hands. 8 years old. This girl was 3 years younger than Mia when she first faced bullying, and she was already doubting her worth. At that moment, Mia realized she couldn't do this alone. The scale of the problem required not individual heroism, but systemic change. The next day, she called a press conference. 2 weeks ago, we held a day of solidarity against bullying, she began, standing before journalists from around the world. The response exceeded all our expectations, but it also revealed the scale of the problem we face. She showed the stacks of letters that continued to arrive daily. Each of these letters is a cry for help, but I can't respond to all of them personally. No one can. We need a systemic solution. Mia announced the creation of the Bridges of Hope Foundation, a nonprofit organization that would coordinate efforts to combat bullying on an international level. We will train teachers, create support programs, develop early intervention tools, but most importantly, we will listen. Listen to every child who feels alone. By the end of the week, several regional companies and charities joined the foundation, offering to create a platform that would connect children in need of support with trained volunteers. Local celebrities supported the initiative, State politicians offered legislative support. But most importantly, the children themselves were becoming part of the solution. In California, a group of high school students created a kindness patrol, a team of students who specifically sought out lonely children in the cafeteria and invited them to their table. In New York, a middle school introduced empathy hours, weekly sessions where children discussed their feelings and learned to understand the emotions of others. In Chicago, children from low-income neighborhoods created Bridges Across Streets, a program that brought together schools from different social backgrounds for joint projects. But the most touching initiative came from an unexpected place, from a group of children with special needs at a school in Ohio. 12-year-old Michael, a boy with Down syndrome, wrote to Mia, "Dear Mia, my name is Michael. I am a special child. Some kids laugh at me because I don't talk like they do, and I learn slower. But after your day on TV, my teacher, Miss Sarah, told us to create a club of special friends. We invite all children who feel different from everyone else. We have Tommy, who stutters. There's Sarah, who is in a wheelchair. There's Jose, who speaks English poorly, and many others. We meet every week and tell each other what makes us special. Tommy draws beautiful pictures. Sarah knows everything about stars. Jose teaches us Spanish words. Now other kids want to join our club. They say we showed them that being different is good. Thank you for teaching us to love ourselves just the way we are." When Mia read this letter on the next television broadcast, she couldn't hold back her tears. "Michael," she said directly into the camera, "you have shown all of us what true wisdom means. You are not just special, you are wonderful." At that moment, something incredible happened live on air. Phones and social media exploded with messages from children with special needs from around the world, who for the first time felt that their differences were their strength. Rachel from Canada, a girl with autism, wrote, "I always thought my autism made me weird, but now I understand. It makes me special. I see the world differently, and that is beautiful." David from Australia, a boy in a wheelchair. "I started a Wheels of Courage club at my school. We show other kids that a disability does not mean inability. I can play basketball better than many walking kids." But the most astonishing letter came from a group of deaf children from a special school in Washington. "Dear Mia, we are deaf children from Gallaudet School. We speak with our hands, but our hearts speak the language of love. We created a video in sign language translating your speech for other deaf children around the world. We want every deaf child to know silence does not mean loneliness. Our teacher says that when you cried on television reading Michael's letter, your tears spoke louder than any words. We understood them without sound. Thank you for showing us that every voice matters, even the one that speaks with hands." Attached to this letter was a video of 20 children performing the song "We Shall Overcome" in sign language. Mia watched it over and over, amazed by the beauty and strength of these silent voices. 3 months after the Day of Solidarity, the Bridges of Hope Foundation was operating in 5 states. The online support platform had over 100,000 users. Bullying statistics in the region's schools dropped by 20%. But for Mia, the most important measure of success was not the numbers, but letters like the one she received from Emma, an 8-year-old girl with dyslexia from Montana. "Dear Mia, it's me again, Emma. Remember I wrote to you 3 months ago? I wanted to know if I mattered, even if I read slowly. Now I know the answer. Yesterday I read a whole book. It took me a week, but I read it from start to finish. It was a book about a little girl who was different from everyone else, but became a hero. My teacher, Mr. Jim, says that dyslexia doesn't make me stupid. It makes my brain special. I think differently, and that's good. Now I help other kids who read slowly. I tell them the same thing you told me. We are all important. P.S. Mom doesn't help me write anymore. I wrote this letter myself. There may be mistakes, but these are my mistakes, and I am proud of them. With love and gratitude, Emma, who now loves to read." Mia read Emma's letter in her office at the foundation's headquarters and cried again. But this time, they were tears of pure joy. Her assistant, 20-year-old Sophie, who herself had been a victim of cyberbullying in her teenage years, peeked into the office. "Mia, you have a meeting with the UN delegation in half an hour. They want to make the Bridges of Hope program part of an international children's rights initiative." "I know," Mia replied, wiping her tears. "Sophie, do you ever think about how we got here?" Sophie smiled. "Every day. 3 years ago, I was lying in a hospital after a suicide attempt due to online bullying. Today, I work for an organization that saves children's lives all over the world. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is." "You know what's the most amazing thing," Mia said, looking back at Emma's letter. Miracles don't start with grand gestures. They start when one person decides to reach out to another. That evening, Mia was preparing for the meeting with the UN representatives that could change the lives of millions of children around the world. But before diving into documents and presentations, she did what she had done every evening for 3 years. She took a sheet of paper and wrote a personal letter to Emma. Dear Emma, you wrote that there might be mistakes in your letter, but you are proud of them. You know what? There is not a single mistake in your letter, because it is written from the heart, and the heart never makes mistakes. You asked 3 months ago if you matter. Today I answer, you are not just important, you are incredible. You have shown all of us what it means to turn difficulties into strength. Keep reading, keep dreaming, keep helping other children. The world needs people like you. With endless love and pride, your friend Mia. P.S. I make mistakes every day too. And you know what? I am proud of them as well, because they teach me to be better. The next day, the meeting with the UN went successfully. The Bridges of Hope program became part of the global initiative to protect children from violence and discrimination. But for Mia, the real victory happened a week later when she received a video from Emma. In it, the 8-year-old girl was reading aloud in front of her entire class, slowly but confidently, without fear or embarrassment. This book is about a girl named Mia, Emma said in the video. She showed the whole world that being different is beautiful. Like me, she was scared at first, but then she found her voice and helped millions of children find theirs. The camera showed the faces of Emma's classmates, interested, respectful, supportive. No giggles, no mockery. Just children listening to another child with understanding and compassion. And now, Emma continued, I also want to help other children find their voices, because every voice matters, even if it sounds different. At the end of the video, the whole class stood up and applauded. But the most important thing was not in the applause. The most important thing was in Emma's eyes. Confident, joyful, full of hope. Mia watched the video in her office, surrounded by stacks of letters from children all over the world, plans for international programs, awards, and recognition. But at that moment, none of it mattered. Only one 8-year-old girl from a small town in Montana who had learned to love herself just the way she is, mattered. Emma, Mia whispered to the computer screen, you have taught me more than I have taught you. That evening, on her way home after another long day working with the foundation, Mia stopped by the old school, Lincoln High, where it all began 4 years ago. The school was empty, but the gym was lit. She peeked through the window and saw a group of children practicing in the self-defense club she had founded. The instructor was now Ryan, her former bully, who had become one of the program's most devoted advocates. Remember, he was telling the group of teenagers, the goal is not to cause harm. The goal is to protect yourself and show that you are not victims. Among the students, Mia recognized a few faces, children who had written her letters, children who had found strength through the program. In the corner of the hall hung a poster with a photograph of Mia and a quote, "True strength is not in defeating enemies. True strength is in turning enemies into friends." Mia smiled and quietly left, not wanting to interrupt the class. But in her heart, there was warmth from the realization that the seed she had planted 4 years ago had grown into a whole forest of hope. At home, a surprise awaited her. On the kitchen table lay a stack of letters. Not the usual letters from children that she received every day, but letters from parents. The first was from the mother of a boy from Texas. Dear Mia, you saved my son Jacob's life. A year ago, he tried to take his own life due to bullying at school. After your day of solidarity, he found the strength to ask for help. Today, he is a happy, confident teenager who helps other kids. I don't know how to thank you for bringing my son back. The next letter was from the father of a girl from California. Miss Chen, my daughter Alexis was one of those who bullied other children. I was ashamed of her behavior and didn't know what to do. After your program, she realized that she was hurting others because of her own insecurities. Now she is a leader of the anti-bullying program at her school. You have changed not only her, but our entire family. Letter after letter told stories of transformation, not only of children, but of families, schools, entire communities. The last letter was special. It was from a family in a small town in Kentucky. Dear Mia, our son Ethan was killed in a school fight 2 years ago. He was a victim of bullying who one day decided to fight back. But another boy, Trevor, was bigger and stronger. One punch, and our boy was gone forever. We were filled with rage. We wanted revenge. We wanted Trevor to rot in prison. But then we saw your program. We saw how you turned your bully into an ally. We realized that anger would not bring our son back, but it could prevent the deaths of other children. We forgave Trevor. Moreover, we are now working with him. He is getting out of prison in a year, and we want him to help us create a program in memory of Ethan. A program that will teach children that there are other ways to resolve conflicts besides violence. We know that Ethan would be proud of us. And we know that this is possible thanks to the example you have shown the world. With deep gratitude, the Martinez family. Mia read the letter from the Martinez family, and tears streamed down her face. To lose a child to violence and find the strength to forgive the killer, moreover, to work with him to prevent new tragedies. This was a manifestation of spirit that surpassed anything she could have imagined. At that moment, her parents walked into the house. Mia, dear, we saw the light in the kitchen, her mother said. It's late. You should rest. Mom, Dad. Mia showed them the letter from the Martinez family. Read this. Her parents read silently, and the same emotions reflected on their faces as on Mia's. Sorrow, admiration, hope. Incredible, her father whispered. To lose a child and find the strength to turn that loss into service for others. They remind me of something important, Mia said. Every time I think I've done enough that I can stop, I get a letter like this. And I realize the work will never be finished. There will always be children who need help. Her mother hugged her. We are proud of you, but we also worry. You carry the pain of the whole world. Not the whole world, Mom, just the part I can change. The next morning, Mia woke up with a clear understanding of what she needed to do next. The Bridges of Hope program was working, but it was still primarily focused on English-speaking countries. It was time to make it truly global. She gathered her team and announced a new initiative, Bridges Without Borders. The program will be adapted to the cultural characteristics of different regions of the country, and over time, it may spread to other English-speaking countries. Bullying is not just our local problem, she explained at a press conference. It is an issue that exists everywhere there are children, and it requires a comprehensive solution. Over the next 2 years, Mia traveled across the country, meeting with children, parents, teachers, and local officials. She spoke in Washington before Congress about the national problem of bullying. She worked with community leaders in Detroit, adapting the program to the issues facing urban youth. She collaborated with activists in Native American reservations, creating a version of the program that took traditional values into account. Each trip brought new revelations about the universality of human pain and the strength of human compassion. In the poor neighborhoods of Los Angeles, she met children who had created a wall of hope, a place where any child could leave a message about their problems, and other children would respond with words of support. In Vermont, she worked with state legislators to create the nation's first law that made emotional support for victims of bullying a responsibility of the school system. In South Africa, she met with activists from the anti-apartheid movement who shared their experiences of turning hatred into understanding. One veteran of the human rights struggle told her, "Young lady, you are doing what we have been trying to do for decades, turning enemies into friends. Keep going. The world needs such bridges." But the most touching meeting occurred in a small town in rural Alabama, where she worked with a school that was struggling with racial tension and bullying. 12-year-old Kesha, an African-American girl who faced discrimination and harassment, told Mia, "In our school, many kids don't want to be friends with someone like me because of the color of my skin. But your program taught us that we can speak from the heart, even when others don't want to listen. We created a Rainbow of Friendship Club where kids of all races learn to understand each other. Even in division, we are building bridges." When Mia returned home after 2 years of traveling the country, she was physically exhausted but spiritually transformed. She had seen the face of human pain in all its forms, but she also witnessed the endless capacity of people for compassion and change. On her first evening home, the doorbell rang. A young woman stood at the door holding a baby. "Miss Chen, my name is Jessica. Jessica from Texas." Mia didn't immediately recognize her, and then the realization hit her like lightning. This was the same Jessica who 5 years ago wrote about suicidal thoughts and then created the Bridges of Hope Club at her school. "Jessica!" Mia hugged the girl and both cried. "I graduated with honors," Jessica said through tears. "I got into college for psychology. I married Alex, the boy from our support club, and this," she pointed to the baby, "this is our daughter, Mia." Mia looked at the tiny face of the girl named after her and felt something deep inside her heal completely. "We named her after you," Jessica continued, Because you saved not only my life, you saved the life of my daughter, who would never have been born if I had. She couldn't finish, but it didn't matter. Mia understood. Can I hold her? Mia whispered. Jessica carefully handed over the baby. Little Mia opened her eyes and looked at her namesake. In that gaze, there was nothing but pure trust and love. Hello, little one, Mia said softly. Welcome to a world made better by your mom. That evening, after Jessica left, Mia sat in her garage where it all began 8 years ago. She didn't practice. She just sat in meditation, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. From a frightened victim to an international leader of the movement. From a lonely girl to a person whose name was known by millions of children around the world. From pain to healing. From trauma to transformation. But the most important realization came when she held little Mia in her hands. It wasn't about how many children she saved or how many programs she created. It was about the fact that every act of compassion creates ripples that spread through generations. Jessica didn't end her life thanks to words of hope. She grew up, became a psychologist, got married, and had a daughter. This daughter will grow up in a world that has become kinder thanks to a mother who survived. And she, in turn, will make the world even better for her children. This is what real bridges are, Mia whispered into the silence of the garage. They connect not just people. They connect generations. The next morning, Mia received a letter that changed everything again. It was from the International Human Rights Committee. Dear Ms. Chen, we are honored to inform you that you have been awarded the International Human Rights Prize for your outstanding work in creating a culture of nonviolence and compassion among youth worldwide. At the age of 24, you have become the youngest laureate of this award in history. But even this news was not the most important event of the day. The most important was a phone call from Emma, now a 15-year-old girl from Montana. Mia, Emma shouted into the receiver. I read online about the Human Rights Award. That's incredible. Emma, how are you? How's school? Great. You know what? I'm now the fastest reader in my class. It turns out dyslexia taught my brain to work differently, and now I understand things that other kids don't. That's amazing, Emma. And you know what else? I've decided what I want to be when I grow up. What? Like you. I want to help kids who feel different. I want to show them that being different is a superpower. Mia smiled, feeling her heart fill with warmth. Emma, I think you'll be much better at this than I am. Why? Because you're already doing it every day, just by being yourself. After the conversation with Emma, Mia realized that the International Human Rights Prize was not the end of her journey, but the beginning of a new phase. The recognition would give her a platform for even greater influence, a chance to reach even more children. But deep down, she knew that the most important work had already been done. Not programs, not funds, not international agreements. The most important work is changing one heart at a time, like Emma's heart, which learned to see its differences as a strength. Like Jessica's heart, which chose life over death. Like Brad's heart, which learned to ask for forgiveness. Like Marcus's heart in prison, which found a path to redemption. Like the hearts of millions of children around the world who understood the simple truth. They are not alone. That evening, Mia stood on the same balcony in New York, where 4 years ago she first felt the scale of her influence. The city lights sparkled below, but now she saw them differently. Each little light is someone's life, someone's story, someone's chance to become better. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a message from an unknown number. Miss Chen, I don't know you, but you saved my daughter's life. She wanted to end her life due to cyberbullying. But then she saw one of your videos and realized that pain is temporary, while death is eternal. Today she is happy and helps other children. Thank you for giving hope in the darkest moments. A grateful mother from Brazil. Mia smiled, putting her phone away. Even now, at the moment of her greatest triumph, the most important thing remained the simplest. One life saved from despair. She looked up at the stars, barely visible amid the city glow, and whispered the words that had become her daily prayer. May every child know their worth. May every voice be heard. Let every heart find its bridge to hope. And somewhere in the city below, in hundreds of cities around the world, millions of children were going to sleep, knowing that tomorrow they would wake up in a world where their lives matter, where their pain is understood, where their hopes are real. A world that changed forever because of one girl who decided that she would not be treated that way anymore. And this was just the beginning.